So, listeners, this is Andrew speaking.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Mike, this is Don Carnage speaking to you with my voice. Okay. Sorry. Serious.
Jesus.
This is Andrew Johnston, RDH, speaking to you right now.
So glad you clarified that.
Yes.
It is not Michelle Strange.
It
RDH.
is not. Well, now it is also Michelle Strange talking. But here's the thing. You guys have heard us talk about Smiles at Sea in the past.
We might have gone on one of those cruises.
And it was amazing. Mm-hmm. We had a great time.
We had a great time.
There was a lot of fun to be had. A lot of
CE to be had.
A lot of networking and friendships to be formed.
Yes.
There's another one coming up.
There is.
In April.
And it's Nurses Meet Hygienists.
It is going to be amazing. So
yes.
when we talk about the oral systemic link, like this is going to be where you get
and trying to be a collaboration within the medical profession, boom, it's on a boat.
Yeah.
It's on a boat.
So you get CE, you get fun, you get a little bit of vacation.
Get a little sun.
Hopefully you get your doctors to pay for it as well. It's in April.
But if not, do it for yourself because
you need to.
You need to invest in your education, and this is fun.
Absolutely.
But it will be at what, April?
April 28th to the 30th.
They're going to Bahamas.
To the Bahamas. Going out of Miami. You go from Miami to the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm. So 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right?
Yep.
Which is nice.
It's not very expensive.
No.
Couldn't tell you the price right now because I can't think of it. But well, that was a good one. Like we said it all at the same time. But if you use the promo code AJ for Andrew Johnston.
AJ, not MJ for Michael Jackson.
Or MS for Michelle Strange.
Yeah, don't use that. Because you won't get anything from that.
I almost said or BS for...
I will shove that mic down your throat.
Bologna is what I was going to say. AJ, listeners, that's the one.
AJ.
You will get a discount.
Very good.
And so... go to the smilesatsea.com website and register as soon as possible. I will be on the ship.
It's
Michelle,
questionable if I will be
may
there.
or may not be there, but I'll bring my recording stuff.
Yeah.
So whether you want to just
Mike,
hang out,
the manager,
Mike,
a Tale of Two Hygienist manager, aka
newly promoted,
Andrew's older brother,
from lower assistant. From the least of the least to now the best. Mike will be there.
The brains behind this operation. He will be there. So
I don't think he wants credit for that, by the way.
What? That he's
to be
the brains of the operation.
Because there are still no brains in this operation. Anyways,
still
listeners.
winging it.
Yeah, we are. That's how we do it.
So,
listeners, go. Register.
Smilesatsea.com.
Promo code AJ.
Yes.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all.
You're going to say that.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of two hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of two hygienists.
You know what it sounded like when you were coming up the stairs, by the way? It sounded like...
like a pirate with a wooden leg?
Actually, that's better than what I was going to say. I was going to say it sounds like when you have your laundry like out of balance in the washer. It's like do-do, do-do, do-do. That's what it sounded like when you're coming up the stairs. So, hold on. So you just were walking and you kicked the desk?
Yeah, I kicked the coffee table leg. And I don't know. There's no reason for it other than me being the most clumsy person in the world. But and I hit things like that a lot because apparently I don't know where my feet are ever. But this one was pretty bad, and I couldn't walk on it afterwards. Like it brought like almost tears to my eyes that I kicked it so hard. And then I was like, God, that really still hurt. I still can't bend it. That really hurts when I touch it. And then it just started slowly turning black. So shout out to all pinky toes out there. Who knew you did so much work with walking?
Yeah.
It's been very difficult.
So
yeah, and I have 2 flights of stairs, 3-story house. It's been fun.
Oh, is that what that noise was? Wow. Hey, so hold on. So even when you're doing all your balleting, dancing, whatever you used to do, like you never had an injury like that before?
Of like stumping my toe when I was dancing?
Or like breaking it because you had to be on your tiptoes all the time?
well, I didn't break it or anything, but I mean, I had a lot of, this isn't the correct way of putting it, but this is always what I say when I have it. But I always say I pull my arches. So, like, I'll get a strain in my arch.
Yeah.
Like, just right where the bottom of my, like, big toe attaches. And then all the way through the arch into my heel. And that would happen to me a lot. So, when that happens, I wouldn't be able to walk very well. So it's just bad
gross.
stretching. And then now what I've learned with fascia and how it's all connected and plantar fasciitis and how that's just more of a symptom of a bigger problem and shin splints and stuff like that. I can see now that many, many years I was just kind of creating inflammation. But, it all is kind of linked because, I have that hypermobility nonsense, which is why I have such issues with my jaw.
Right.
And they said if I hadn't have probably been dancing and been flexible within my muscles, I probably would have created more like soft tissue injuries. Just really interesting.
It sucks, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'll heal.
You'll
Somebody
heal.
told me the other day I went to see a dentist and he was like, yeah, it looks like you're going to need a full jaw replacement, like joint replacement. I was like, yeah, peace out. That's not what I wanted to hear. So
Yeah.
I have complete empathy for patients in the dental chair. I really do. So, are we recording now?
Welcome, listeners, to episode number 66. This is Andrew.
This is Michelle. And
Yeah, we got to figure out what we're going to do with that.
lovely rosé.
It is
What?
very rosé.
It's
So
pink, but it's not as sweet.
Did you look up what it says on the label?
No, but by the time we make it to story time with Michelle, I will have Google translated the bottle.
Okay.
Because I feel like it might be German because there's dots over that A, but that's also a Swedish thing. I don't know, man. I'm gonna find out for you guys though.
You find it out for us while you're paying attention while I do the other things. So, well.
So we're recording on a Monday, which is kind of abnormal for us, and because you had the day off, you had another day off, dude. That's awesome.
I know it's like 2 in 2 weeks, but well, I mean, I also worked on Saturday, so I mean, I still worked overtime and stuff, but yeah, that's. I think I
gotta tell you though, your work schedule stresses me out.
Why?
I don't know. Like, I feel very stressed up with your crazy work schedule.
I mean,
I just know that my body would not be able to do it. And it stresses me out. Like, you're going to fall apart.
I'm not going to fall apart. I mean, I don't know. I know this isn't necessarily like a direct correlation, but I mean, I did sports and stuff and I'm still pretty active. And so I feel like if I wasn't doing anything at all day long, except for doing the same position of dental hygiene, and that's all I did with my life, I would probably be in worse shape. But I think I'll be okay. And I think that, I don't think it's a surprise to listeners to find out that it's probably not really going to be the end all be all for me. I would love to stay in clinical, but I think that there's going to be other opportunities that come my way, maybe 10 or 15 years down the road that I won't be doing clinical until I retire. So
I worked with a lady who was doing it 40 years when I first got out of hygiene school. And she was so burned out. She was just like trying to make it for the last few years, which is just never the way I think anybody really wants to work. And I always felt like, I don't know how she's doing. I know she was missing things. Like, she would come out. This was great. She would come out, and we had a huge sterilization. Like, center of the building was like our clean, dirty area, and then like a doctor's area and X-ray, and then we had ops on either side of that with hallways and stuff. And so she would come into like that central area and like start writing her charts up on the dirty area countertop, which just sent me into. Oh God, it was so gross. And then she would sit there and go, I think that was a 4 millimeter pocket there. Yeah, I think it was. And we just write it down there.
That's
And I was
great.
like, you were just breezing by until you can get the hell out of here. Jesus, poor patients. And her patients loved her though, and which are the worst, because the moment you try to come in and like make a difference, like you see that there's been some slack ass stuff happening in that with that patient, and you try to make a difference, they go, "Well, that's not the way she did it." And they freak out on you and make you feel like you're the worst hygienist, especially when you're a newbie.
Yeah.
Like when you're a newbie and you're like wanting to like connect and mean something to that patient and make a difference, and they're like, "You're not the one I had last time. Where's Angel? Where's Joanne? Where's Mallory?" I'm like, get that. Go home. Go home. Please.
So what do you? Okay, hold on. So let's say that not necessarily newbie to the profession, but let's say that you're new to an office and you run into that problem. Like, what's the best way to handle it then?
I don't
feel like
actually
a lot
know.
of people.
And I feel like
a lot
someone's
of people
better
just
to
like
ask than me.
we're gonna just keep talking over each other, I guess.
No,
Sorry.
I think I interrupted you, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, well, just pay back for the Voices of Dentistry thing where I interrupted you for every single thing. Anyways, I was going to say that I feel like a lot of people just take the position of, I'm going to do a pretty good job, but I'm not going to really get down in there and do a very thorough job because I'm still trying to make a difference. And these patients are going to tell the dentist, hey, I didn't like that one as much. And then, you know, they're scared for their job, which is kind of a hard place to be put in.
Yeah, it really is, because I guess you just have to ease into it, and you can't go like horses out of the gate making changes. They don't like it, especially if that hygienist was there for like decades. It just won't end well for you. But it is also at the same time hard to just sit there and see it and not be able to do anything about it. I mean, it makes me a little crazy.
I think if you implement some sort of a perio protocol in the office and just say, hey, this is what we're going to do. When we see this, we do this. When we see this, we do that. And get the dentist on board. That way it can be coming from the dentist as well. Because I think a lot of times they just think that we make up our own crap. But if the dentist says it, then all of a sudden everything's good to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a pretty good idea.
I've seen good responses on Facebook about like, maybe just taking it out of your decision. This is your choice to do this kind of work, and putting it in that third parties. Like, I just read the research study. I just went to a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
I just learned that this is a big deal, and I'm seeing this in your mouth, or I'm a little concerned about this because I have just learned X, Y, and Z. And then it's not you being the person that's telling them how bad their mouth is, and it was not the other hygienist that wasn't doing it, that this is just brand new, whatever, even though it's not, and it's the same old stuff another day, but at least it's not you, and it's not putting it on the other hygienist that they weren't doing their job.
That's a good point. I never really thought about that. That's so smart.
Who did we just interviewed someone, or maybe I was just talking to somebody. It's so crazy how this is all just kind of a big blend. I don't really remember sometimes where we get the information.
Yeah, you do talk a lot. You're right.
You're so fun. I did learn a lot of things this weekend. I was at the Academy of Osseointegration in Orlando, their big meeting. And I didn't go to any actual meetings. I was in the conference or in the exhibit hall the whole time. But I just had really good conversations with people, which was nice.
That is nice. So who were these people that were coming up and talking to you? Was it the auxiliary staff, or was it the dentists, or?
No, it was mostly dentists and just people that I've worked with, and that actually speak on Tepe products. But you know how when we had our Voices of Dentistry, we did our lecture or whatever, and we talked about like we don't want the people that want it for the spotlight. That we want the people who are in it for like the love of the profession and the science of it.
Right.
This is a meeting where I come across and meet and kind of cultivate more of the relationship with these dentists that do not ask. They speak on Tepe products, but they don't ask for honorarium. They don't ask for anything. Like, I have to push samples. I'm like, here, no, we'll send them. Send them to your patient or your people. Like, we're happy to do that. And they're like, well, it's not necessary. Just give me some slides. I'm like, seriously, this is amazing things that you're doing. You just care about the product. You care about putting the right stuff into people's hands, and
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
all you get out of it. Like that's it. So it's those kind of people that I run across versus some other meetings where they're like, gimme, honorariums that are just ridiculous. I'm like, come on, people. Is this really a realistic number? Did you add an extra zero by mistake? So it's just a good group of people. I really enjoy going. And they have a team day, which I didn't really realize. And I'm excited to put my name in the hat for the podium on that one for maybe next year.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You know what we should do
That's exciting.
sometime, speaking of honorariums, is we should talk about that. Like, get some people together and talk about, I mean, not necessarily like what you asked for, but kind of how that's broken down. Because a lot of the people that are maybe wanting to get out of
That's a good idea.
clinical, they need to know what they can expect, because I'll be honest, you're not going to get rich speaking. I mean, there are some people that do very well, but it's not
Yeah.
the same.
Really, I mean, if you're not going into it for the love of passing on the message for the greater good of the profession and the love of the science and the love of the networking, then don't maybe go into it. But you're right. There are some people but they're also like busting their butts to make a living off of it. But I think that's a great idea, because even you and I've texted you like before, like, well, I don't know what to ask for this. Like, people are asking me how much I pay or charge. I'm like, because I mean, and Carrie actually yells at me all the time. She's like, stop working for free. 'Cause I would have done it for free. And I'd be like, sure,
Yeah.
that's cool. I'll talk about that. I think that's fun. But the reality is that hotel rooms need to be paid for, flights need to be booked, that kind of stuff. So you have to get paid. But yeah, I think that might be we should probably get a handful of some of our favorite speakers on and ask them.
Yeah. Or maybe we can just like, because no one's going to want to really put their name to it, but maybe we can, ask some of our friends just to kind of chime in, and we'll kind of not read who said it, but read some of the responses.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Speaking some of our faves, I got a really badass water bottle in the mail when I came back.
I saw your picture. That's awesome.
And it just said from a friend. I was like, oh, someone cares if I'm hydrated or not. Thanks, guys.
And then you translated that into Spanish and said, thank you to my amigo or amiga.
No, it actually did say in the card, amigo.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah. So, I appreciate it to my hydration fairy out there, whoever that was. Cheers to that.
They probably know how much you drink, and they're just like, she needs hydrated.
That girl needs water in
Poor
her
girl. More water. No, I've seen that.
However, our buddy Matt just challenged me to put as many bottles of wine as I can get in there.
That's good.
Thanks, Matt.
So challenge accepted, I guess. That's going to happen.
Challenge accepted.
And then I've seen, I think Katie posted one, and I've seen, I feel like there's been 2 or 3 other ones that posted this last weekend too. So it's a thing, people. Get on it. Contact Angie and get those water bottles. They're awesome.
With High Life. Yep. Also, another little shout out to Melissa Obrapka. Wait, make sure I'm saying it right. She sent me a text message and like broke down her last name. So if I have like butchered your last name on this podcast ever,
which
send
is
me
basically
like
half of our
phonetically
guests.
spelled out. Yeah. Send me something that like puts it in like help me work on my phonics, all right?
Hooked on Phonics word. I wonder how many of our listeners know about Hooked on Phonics. I feel like not very. Obrapka.
I don't know if you're supposed to roll your R, but I feel like it sounds fun. Obrapka.
Let's just go with it. She's going to send you another text later and be like, nope,
Thanks.
you don't roll your
Melissa. Seems more fun that way.
R. It is.
Awesome.
So, I was listening to the beginning of our interview, and I forgot how much I liked Chris. He's a pretty cool guy. And
he is a great guy.
There are some things that didn't make it to the episode, but I I like that. And you can probably tell, like, this is how he does when he lectures too, but he connects with the audience or the people. So that, meaning us, you and I, by telling stories about getting drunk before lecturing. So immediately you were sold on him. So I'm like, this is fantastic.
Well, I've been in his lecture before, him and Scott Froum, and they're a good dynamic duo. And he's a great lecturer, and you're right, he does connect very well with the audience.
Yeah.
He does a good job. And he's just a cool dude. Like, I never met him, and I think my first interaction with him was because Dr. Josh Austin gave me his contact info, and so I emailed him, and he was like really quick to email me back, gave me great feedback, gave great information, has always been quick to email me back. He's just wonderful, and it's really hard sometimes to come across people in this industry like that. And he's great though.
It was a good interview, and yeah. You know what's funny is as I was listening to it though, I could hear the hum of being under the escalators. I didn't think it was going to get picked up in the mics, but you can hear it. It's not bad, but it's just like
parked our little selves under the. We parked our little butts underneath we thought a quiet corner under the escalator.
We didn't get a lot of like other people talking, so I feel like I still like that a spot. Yeah. And you know, again, I'm still really appreciative of the people at what is it, CDS, the Chicago Dental Society, that put it on for us, or that allowed us to use some space. So I really appreciated that. Yeah,
for sure. Well, enjoy this episode with Dr. Chris Salierno. It's a good one, guys.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah.
It's time for the interview.
Oh, but I had something else to say.
We need to let the experts talk now.
Fine. All right. I let us in before. I'm giving it to you.
It's not how this works.
I feel like it should. Do you want me to do it?
Always.
All right. So, listeners, we're doing an interview, day 2, Chicago Midwinter.
Yep.
It's our second interview of a gazillion.
Yeah.
And it's with Dr. Chris Salierno,
yep,
who actually just got off the stage with Anastasia. You're being I love how that you're adding to this right now.
Yeah. Can I just say I'm a fan of your podcast? I'm an active listener, and I love watching the magic happen right now in front of me.
Magic. I don't know if anything here is magical.
This is not, that's funny though.
I think it's great that you listen. I can't believe you
guys
actually
have
listen.
Great banter. You know, you have great
very
guests,
brother
and you
sister.
talk about great things. Totally. Yes.
Very brother sister.
I'm the older though of the two.
Sure. Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay.
He's not. I'm actually older.
Okay.
I like
whatever.
A couple months, but whatever.
I meant like emotional maturity.
Emotionally, well, that's probabably actually
I'm
true.
like leaps and bounds.
Let's not get all crazy. All right.
Okay. Anyway, so day 2, lots of podcasting.
Yeah.
So far.
But it's early, very early in the morning. What time? I mean, did you have a big night last night?
No, because I had
to get up. So Anastasia's coffee chat was at 7 a.m. And what time did you have to be here?
They told me to be here by 6:30, so I got up at 5:45. But I'm on East Coast time, so
it's not so bad.
Not so bad, but no, I was like, oh, that sounds like a good party. I'll love to go to Hub 51. No, I'll be in bed because
I have
lecturing. Well, you guys know lecturing and doing, like, I'm shooting a lot of videos here with dental economics, and it's to do that when you're not refreshed is really painful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I learned that lesson once and was like, okay, never again.
I've learned a lesson a few times. Well, maybe I haven't learned.
That if you keep repeating it.
Yeah. I haven't learned anything about it, but I behaved.
I feel like the lesson most people need to learn once, though.
Yeah.
Stay out late one night.
Most people should lecture hungover. And
it's
then
the worst.
Just go through that.
Yeah.
I actually don't know which worse, to do it lecture hungover or be in a lecture hungover.
Ooh. Yeah, because if you're lecturing hungover, you might get like a rush
of that adrenaline.
But then
you're not
afterwards,
focusing on how awful you feel until you
man.
come down off of it, and then you're like dying pretty much. But
I've seen it. I haven't done that recently. Not really ever. Actually, I'm really good about when I'm lecturing. But I did a lecture with a friend of mine. I won't say names, but it's Scott Froum. And this is years ago. And he had a late night the night before. And we were lecturing to hygienists. We were actually lecturing at a hygiene school. And he came in like 10 minutes before. I can't believe him. Sorry, Scott, I'm telling the story. He's very professional, by the way. And he came in like 15 minutes before the lecture started. I'm like, dude, are you okay?
Are you still
I
drunk?
have to do like a half-day lecture with you. He's like, powerful night last night. Woo!
Powerful.
And I'm like, dude.
That's one way to describe
yeah.
it.
I'm like,
Powerful.
are you going to be okay? And then he went on to absolutely do one of the best lecturing performances I've ever seen. And you've seen him lecture.
Yeah.
He is an outstanding lecturer. And it like didn't affect his game at all, or if anything, it had like a positive effect on him. And
Was
after
he,
we were,
because he was so drunk? Because I could
no,
see
he
that
definitely
being.
wasn't. He definitely wasn't that. I'll give him credit there. And then, you know, afterwards, I was like, it was great. Hey, should we go get some lunch? He's like, I'm going to sleep for the next 3 days. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not doing it. So it is possible.
Very good.
The lesson we learned is everyone should lecture hungover once. I think
Right.
that's what we've discovered.
Yeah. So, all right, you were lecturing to hygienists. So let's actually kind of back up just a little bit because what are you doing now? Why do you even lecture to hygienists? But let's start at kind of the very beginning.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm a practicing general dentist. I practice on Long Island. I'm there 2 or 3 days a week. The rest of my week is devoted to lecturing. I'm the chief editor for Dental Economics. I was able to take over that position a couple of years ago. So, you know, I spend those days usually at home in a digital loop of emails and phone calls and back and forth and back and forth. But I also get to travel a lot and go to meetings like this. What I love lecturing about is practice management. That fits with dental economics, obviously. But clinically, I love talking about restoring implants.
Mm-hmm.
I love talking about the complications that come along with that. But what I love focusing my lectures on implant restorations, all of the things that can go wrong with that, and where Scott Froum and I have spent, and Scott is a periodontist for those in the audience that don't know, where we've spent a lot of our time is focusing specifically on hygienic complications.
Mm-hmm.
So there's cosmetic stuff. We know the cosmetic complications. There's certainly functional complications, a screw breaks, porcelain chips, whatever. But what I'm hoping that dentists can learn about, because they're kind of asleep at the wheel with this, is the hygienic complications that come along with it. Peri-implant mucositis, peri-implantitis. What's the difference between the two? A lot of dentists don't understand that.
No, they don't. Yeah. But it gets thrown kind of in the hygienist lap, and we actually don't always understand it ourselves. So
I was going to say, sometimes if it's not important to the dentist, then sometimes we kind of sidestep it a little bit. And that must not be that big of a deal.
And my experience, especially with teaching, is that everyone's a little scared of implants. Like, what do I do with this?
Absolutely.
I don't. Do I probe? Do I not probe? Do I scale? Do I not scale? What do I scale with? How do I do this? What do I teach my patient?
There are dentists who will freak out if they probe an implant and it starts bleeding. They're like, I don't know, go to the periodontist. Maybe this is failing or something. And they don't understand. I mean, you can even have, it can be bleeding, it can be painful, there can be pus.
Yeah.
You can have purulence, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to rush out the door and go to a specialist. Now, all credit to specialists, by the way. Please at least diagnose that there's a problem and get them the care they need.
Sure.
But the general dentist practice, along with the hygienist, for sure can treat a lot of these things just like they treat gingivitis. If you probe around a tooth and it bleeds, you don't say, oh my God, run to the... You say, okay, let's take a radiograph. Let's go through the diagnostic criteria, see what your level of disease is, and then come up with a game plan on that. And it's no different with implants. But you're right. I think a lot of dentists, and hygienists too, I'll say, just haven't been educated and are really scared of these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. So what kind of role can a hygienist play in the co-diagnosis of mucositis? And also maybe define that term, just in case, because we have some new grads and students that listen to this.
Sure. So, again, there can be pain, there can be bleeding, there can be purulence. Any of those things are signs of a problem, obviously, around the implant. The next step is to take a radiograph, and if you see signs of bone loss around the implant, more than what you would expect, because sometimes you can see a little bit of bone loss around the first couple threads, compare it to an older radiograph. If there's signs of bone loss and you have those symptoms, then that is most likely a peri-implantitis.
Right.
And that is something that I absolutely believe should then go to someone who is well trained in treating that, like a periodontist, for example.
Sure.
If you were to take a radiograph and there isn't any bone loss, then that is most likely a peri-implant mucositis. And that can be treated in the office. You want to identify, why is this here? Is it, it's the same things that happen around natural teeth, right? Is it bad oral hygiene? Is this patient, genetically prone in some fashion? What can certainly happen with implant contours, you can have prosthetic contours that block hygienic access.
Yes.
So maybe the person has great hygiene. They just, no one can clean this darn thing.
Maybe the hygienist can't clean.
Right. The hygienist can clean.
Right.
And then, of course, another popular one, if this was a cemented restoration, you can have
Yes.
cement underneath that is causing a lot of these issues.
Cementitis.
So, cementitis,
That's
as they,
the
as
new
they, as
term
they,
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they call it that. I mean, really, for me, I think it's peri-implant cementitis or periscementitis. It is essentially a mucositis or a peri-implantitis. It's just got a very obvious
Yeah.
cause in
right.
that case. Yeah.
Well, you can get that around natural teeth when people don't clean up
Absolutely.
cement very well.
Crowns, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same
Absolutely. It can
idea.
be just really destructive
Yes,
around teeth.
for
And
our
sometimes
body.
it can take 7-8 years, the literature has shown, before it arises. So there could be subgingival
Mm-hmm. Right.
excess cement and everything's fine. Then all of a sudden it
They had
blows
that
up.
host response, some kind of biological response to it. And I think that's an excellent point because a lot of times patients, especially, but even hygienists think it's kind of a set it and forget it, like the implant's in there and it's fine. And so it was successful for the first year, great, high five. It's
Right.
good for the second year, and then we kind of get on it's fine.
It's never
fine,
going to get a
it's fine.
cavity, so who
And
cares?
then 10 years hits, and it's like, holy shit, now we've lost the whole facial wall. What happened? And you flap it back, and it's a hot mess in there, and
Yeah.
you can't fix that, and
Right.
very easily, at least. It
Right.
takes a lot of surgeries and patient effort
It is.
and stuff like
It
that.
is a very expensive problem to fix.
Yes.
It is an unpredictable problem to fix. There isn't really a magic formula just yet that will predictably treat peri-implantitis. There are periodontists like Scott Froum who have a cocktail
Yeah.
and a bunch of procedures that they do, and they have had success. You just don't want to go there, though.
No.
And there is undiagnosed peri-implant mucositis in every practice. Just
Yeah.
like I can say that confidently to say that there's gingivitis in every dental practice,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So it's just a matter of identifying it. What the hygienist can do is just help wake the dentist up to the fact that these are things that are in the practice, and ask them, can you please supply me with the armamentarium to treat this? There are codes for this. We can bill for it. Not that it's all about making money, but that sometimes is what the hygienist can say to help wake that
Absolutely.
dentist
if you
up.
have a financially driven dentist, then that's a way.
For sure, that
Yeah.
can, if that's what's motivating them, if they're those dentists out there, I'm sure you I don't have to explain what the criteria, what a cheap dentist looks like. You know them very well. You know them when you see them. Then talk to them in terms of
Scalers
what will
from
motivate them.
1985 still
Yeah,
in the
it
office.
still works. Sharpen that a little more.
Cavitron tips,
I'm at
15
the
years
hub.
old.
Yeah, exactly. So you can say, look, these are the codes that you can use. This is absolutely stuff we can treat in our practice. We
Right.
can use this to help develop the system for your practice to treat this, diagnose and treat, co-diagnose and treat this
yeah.
disease. Absolutely.
So that kind of brings me into the kind of conversations and the communication style, because we were just talking a little bit ago about how sometimes you have the dentist that's sleeping and the hygienist is like, we need it, and we come across as very pushy, very prima donna-ish, or diva-like.
Right.
And I think there's also the very entitled hygienist that says, I deserve, I need. And I think, honestly, that's kind of instilled in a very early hygiene kind of education, unfortunately. But I think there's a way that we can speak to each other that doesn't develop animosity and contention within the practice. But I haven't figured that out, because I'm one of those people that gets really emotional. If you're not doing what's right by the patient, I'm probably not going to be nice about it. So I say these things knowing that I'm the one that needs to learn these communication skills. But do you have recommendations? Like, what if you were a sleeping doctor, what could a hygienist say that doesn't sound kind of pretentious? And
I think it really depends case by case. There's no one sentence to have in your pocket that
Right.
will convince every dentist every time, right? What I think you start by identifying what the issues are in the practice. If it's a practice that isn't busy, there are a lot of practices out there right now that are not as busy as they were 10, 20 years ago. The dentist is just kind of tired, lazy,
Yeah.
I'll say it. So to turn that whole ship around is a monumental task. And it doesn't have to solely rest with the hygienist. But the hygiene department is the core, the engine that runs the practice. There's no question about that. As the statistics are, I get a lot of my statistics from Diane Glasgow-Watterson, who's fantastic. She is a great
we
champion.
want her on the
Oh,
podcast.
she's
Why
the
Why don't you just,
sweetest.
could you drop her a line?
I would love to do that because she is an
Because
absolute
I-
treasure.
I know. Could you just push her towards us? Because we would love to have
It
her.
would be
Yeah.
my pleasure. I have a dental crush on her. Whenever she
Oh.
speaks, I just listen and take so many notes. She writes a column for
Yes,
dental economics.
that's
and
why
for
I would love to
RDH,
have
our
her
sister
on.
publication. Yeah,
Yes.
she is the best. So she knows her numbers very well, and so she'll tell you that a successful practice, about 30% of the production of the revenue that comes in comes from the hygiene department, and about upwards of 75% of the work that the dentist does
Comes from
is
hygiene.
diagnosed in the hygiene chair. Yeah. So if the hygiene department isn't a well-oiled
machine,
engine,
yeah,
well-oiled
yeah.
machine, then that's where a lot of these problems can come from. So it's a monumental task, I think, for anyone to turn that sluggish practice around. But the hygienist can at least take some leadership and start to make some changes. Developing an implant program, or let me back up. Let's make sure that there's systems in place, just even for treating gingivitis and periodontal disease in the practice.
Absolutely.
Let's make sure those systems are in place first. Assuming that's in place, then having a well-defined implant program, making sure you have the armamentarium to treat the patients and treat those peri-implant mucositis in the office. Having home care solutions you can offer patients. Making sure that you have the codes available that will make sure that everyone gets paid for this.
And not everybody knows that there's medical codes now for implant failures failures, because not complications, but the failure side of it. And so
it's changing all the time.
Yes,
There's a code, I think it's, don't quote me on this, D6080, I believe, is the code for removing a prosthesis, cleaning a prosthesis. And that's, you still then have your other, maintenance and whatever else is happening at that visit. But there are codes for this stuff, and the dentist can get paid for this. And again, that's not what it's all about, but maybe that's what will help motivate them a little bit.
Well, I mean, I hate the business side of it, but at the end of the day, I also want to be paid. I have bills of my own, so the office needs to get paid so you can get paid. And so, I think coding and things like that are very important. And I also think it comes down to, in which Patty DeGangi talks about, is the diagnosis. Like, you have to diagnose, and codes go with that.
Yeah. There's a story I tell in my lectures about the difference between an active and a passive dentist. A lot of these sleepy practices have a passive dentist. They're not an active business leader. So the story I'll tell, which is perfectly helps anyone understand that, would be I graduated a bunch of years ago. My first gig when I was working for someone else was a sleepy practice. A proud fee-for-service. I'm a fee-for-service practice. Oh, that's great. Well, you saw like 3 patients today, so good job with that,
Yeah.
But the hygienist was really only there part-time, and which is not uncommon that you work a couple days here, a couple days there, but I mean, there was only a couple days of hygiene in this practice. And all these charts are on the wall, but no one's coming in for their visits, right? So she would maybe see 3-4 patients a day. That's not a whole lot. And I remember one day we're sitting in the back office because we weren't busy seeing patients, and the hygienist knocked on the door and said, "Hey, I saw my couple morning patients, but I had one afternoon and that patient canceled. So should I just go home now, I guess?"
Yeah.
And the dentist said, looked away from his computer. He's like, "Yeah, thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow." And he went back to managing his fantasy baseball team. And that's like, dude, take a moment and say, you know what? Don't go home. Let's have a quick little meeting here. What's going on? Why aren't we seeing more hygiene patients? We have all these charts on the wall. What do we need to do to start a reactivation and recall system, right? So that would be an act. It's not being an active business owner doesn't mean you know how to run a business perfectly. It just means you notice when something isn't going right, and you have a team huddle with the key people, and you figure out a solution and you try it. And so the hygienist can be that person that helps wake that dentist up in that situation. It said, hey, rather than just go home, can I hang out here and maybe talk with the person at the front desk and you, if we can pull you away from your fantasy baseball team here, and let's talk about.
There's a deadline though. You gotta get that new pitcher in.
Yeah. Pause for a moment. Get off Facebook and let's talk about how we can do this.
Right.
Because that absolutely affects your pocketbook too.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, this dentist is going to send you home because there's no one to treat.
Well, I think that maybe is a good way to also approach some of the new problems that we're seeing. Being told to clock out for when the patient's not in the chair. And
that's ridiculous. This goes state by state.
Again, I'm sorry.
It's ridiculous that happens. This goes kind of state by state with labor laws and whatever. But essentially, if you are being required to be in a place, then you should be paid for that. Whether your hands are in someone's mouth or you're sitting at the front desk or making phone calls, you can't be forced. state by state, but you can't, at least in New York, you can't be
Yeah.
forced to clock out. That is illegal. Not just unethical, it is illegal.
Yeah.
Now, if you're allowed to clock out and you can go, down the street and go shopping, that's different. But again, none of these are healthy
No.
signs of a practice.
No.
You should stay clocked in and be working with that dentist
I
and
just
team
want
to
to know
figure out how to
who
get
is
busy.
spreading that rumor that that's a good way to practice.
I don't know, but
Because
they're
there's
dead
a
wrong.
lot. There's
They're
a
dead wrong.
lot. They are dead wrong. So they need to come to your practice management courses.
I will tell you, I tell my team members, I'm like, I understand the power of a good nap. I'm like, listen, if you wanna, if you don't have a patient and you just are like, I just want to kind of turn my brain off, take a nap. I don't care. I would have you clock out for that. I'm not going to literally pay you to sleep, but so that's okay. But no, if you're in the office, I'm requiring you to be here.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that we're giving, figuring out for you to do. You're on the phone. You're calling patient. Whatever. You have to get paid for that. Absolutely.
Awesome.
I agree.
What question?
what?
Hmm?
What's that? Sorry.
You got questions? Is your brain
Well,
over there working?
No, I don't really have that many questions. I just, we kind of talked a little bit, or you talked with Anastasia a little bit about tools for cleaning, and I kind of, with your connections, I want to know if there's like new products or not necessarily new that are coming up, or maybe that are new on the market that you're excited about for the hygiene world that we should know about.
Yeah, I mean, the plastic scalers are kind of garbage. We know that. There are other materials that are still soft, like graphite, that are out there. I think that's really good for loose plaque around implants, and it's going to be gentle. I think you really do have to kick it up to titanium, though, but it has to be used with discretion.
Yeah.
Can't go in willy-nilly, otherwise you could scratch the titanium surfaces, and now you've actually...
Well, and it's not even a scratch. It's like the secret sauce that's on the outside of these,
Right, these
SLA coatings and things like
Right,
that,
right.
and that you could be scratching off. But
That's
my
true.
thing always is with what are you scaling? Like, are you scaling an implant body? Are you scaling an abutment? Are you scaling a crown? Like, what are you dealing with? And really, do you need to scale it, or do you just need to do biofilm disruption?
It's a great question. So if, it depends on the clinical situation. We absolutely see, especially for like full arch prostheses or multiple unit cases, there are exposed abutment surfaces, there are exposed threads when you do have a history of peri-implant disease. And those are just a son of a gun to keep clean. And you can see calculus caked all around there. So yes, that's when you break out the titanium scaler and go to work. If everything looks healthy, then there's really no need to take an instrument and start jabbing around there.
No.
In my humble
I
opinion.
agree with that as
So
well.
again, it comes down to first diagnosing what do we have here in this particular case. You may have a mouth of healthy teeth and one implant has moderate, peri-implant mucositis. Okay, well, let's figure out what the cause of that is.
Right.
Is there cement
Yes.
underneath? Is it just hard for this patient to keep
Hygiene,
clean?
yeah.
Exactly right. It is really a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
But unfortunately, in too many practices, someone just takes a plastic curette, jams it down there, and says, I don't know, I guess I did something. And I don't blame the hygienist for that. I blame the dentist for that.
And
I blame
honestly,
the education system for that.
And the education for it, sure.
yeah, and just being so unaware of what to do with
Yeah.
implants.
The biggest thing for me, too, that I preach to dentists and to hygienists, too, is the concept of removing an implant prosthesis periodically. And that is a very foreign concept. I was certainly taught in dental school, you don't take these things off. Especially a full arch case, you never take these off. Oh, the screws are going to get distressed
Right.
and they could break. All right, well, then replace
You
the
gotta
screws.
replace the screws, yeah.
Then replace them. But there are certain and you don't have to take off every prosthesis. But I have a categorization I actually wrote about in RDH magazine a couple years ago. It's in Froum has a book on implant complications, and I wrote that in there. Essentially, what it is you have anatomical, you have contours that look just like the natural tooth, and those are easy to keep clean. You can probably keep those on. You have contours that have some hope of hygienic access, but there's these ridge laps, that kind of block access. That's when you have to start thinking about taking this thing off periodically.
You have a book as well for peri-implantitis, correct? Or it's
Yeah.
ebook, right?
I have. Do I have an ebook on that? I don't think I have an ebook on that, but I've done some.
Isn't that
I've
with
done
you
some,
and Dr. Froum?
So Stu Froum, Scott's father, is,
Uh-huh.
is a periodontist on implant complications.
Yes.
Scott and I have written a chapter in that book.
Okay.
That's probably what you're thinking. of, yeah.
And one of it is on the fabrication and design, and how we have the ovate and ridge
Exactly
flap
right.
and
That's
modified
exactly
ridge
what I'm talking
flap
about.
and
Explain
things
Right.
like that.
what you're talking about.
Well,
The
and we actually
ovate.
talked about this with Dr.
blah
ovate
a little
part.
bit, Dr. B. How like some prosthetics have more like an egg shape where it comes up and just kind of kisses the ridge a little bit, and that's a little bit easier to clean. But then depending on where the bone is and where your lip line is and the transition between that, and then also having good conversations between the dentist and the surgeon. Because if they're like, oh, I thought I took enough bone off, and now you have to ridge lap it because the lip line and the transition between the appliances, as soon as they smile, you're going to see it.
Yeah,
and that's not
there are
pretty.
reasons that a dentist, hopefully there's reasons that a dentist has put some of these uncleansable contours in. They're solving a cosmetic issue, or the prosthesis is also replacing gum and bone that's been missing, right? There's a we can't grow bone vertically very well, and so, but the teeth need to be up here, the bone's down there, so we have this prosthesis that has these contours. They should be designed in a more cleansable fashion, and that's up to dentists and their labs and the surgeons placing the implants to help figure that out. But if you inherit one of these cases that it's a full arch case or even just multiple units, and there's these contours that are really hard to keep clean, it's a conversation to have, not in front of the patient, but with the dentist. Hey, what do you think about taking this thing off? So the retrievability of these cases is very important. And unfortunately, there are dentists that, permanently cement, not use an implant-friendly cement. They permanently cement these, and good luck taking it off. So that's why you want to be careful not to, in front of the patient, we'll take this thing off. And then the dentist is like, no, I don't know how to.
You have to fracture it or something
crazy
my
gosh,
trying to get it off.
That can be a show. So
yeah.
In my practice, I make sure that the hygienists see the contours and where these potential problem areas are of the restorations, right? Especially for a full arch case. Those are the really challenging ones.
Right.
And we discuss. We say, let's bring this patient back in a few months, and let's see how they kept this clean. And based on that, we say this person needs to come in 4 times a year, 3 times a year. It's just like anything else, right?
And honestly, I think it gives the patient time to get used to what's happening in their mouth, because if you can't clean it, you start getting that taste or an odor and things like that come with appliances that are not able to be cleaned and removed.
You were in one of my lectures. You saw the worst of the worst. Some of these,
and I actually have one of Dr. Froum's pictures of the underside of some of these that are just disgusting.
It's gross.
It's terrible.
Well, think about it. Someone wasn't able to keep their own natural teeth clean.
You're edentulous for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And now we screwed a denture into their face and said, I dare you to keep this clean. Right? Like, the patient that has the denture and they've never taken it out in 3 years, and you know what that looks like?
Yeah.
So now you basically have given them that
permission to do that.
Yeah. So of course these need to be taken out. Of course they need to be taken out.
And I think too, if they start to get that, I have this awful taste. I have stuff in my mouth. So I did a film out in California on how to use the Tepe products. And one of the guys was like, they're not going to floss it. They're just not going to floss it. And I was like, hey, that's fine, but I'm going to give the patient that decision. I'm going to still teach it. So she had been using oral irrigation and then the Tepe implant care brush, which gets on the lingual side of it. And she was actually doing a really good job and actually maintaining it every day. And so I have it on video. You can read her lips, because I flossed underneath it and I pulled it out, and she goes, that actually feels good.
Oh, wow.
And so now, and I followed up with her, and she's like, I floss at least 3 or 4 times a week now because it feels good.
That's awesome.
It was reaching something. So I think also putting it in the hands of the patient, because once they feel what it's like to be dirty, and then when they feel what it's like to be clean, they're going to be a little bit more motivated.
Absolutely. Now, we talked about some of the in-office armamentarium, but the home care products are a large part of it. Even if you're seeing a patient, the worst of the worst offenders in my practice, I see them 4 times a year. Just like, someone who has, a history of perio disease, and they need 4 visits a year. And we'll periodically remove this prosthesis. But even if you're seeing them that frequently, what happens in between visits is out of our hands, right?
Yeah.
So to give them the best products that we are aware of, Tepe is fantastic. And they have those interdental brushes. Yeah. They get into those nooks and crannies and around there. It's fantastic. I like that. I am a huge water pick fan. Oral irrigators are wonderful for getting and splashing around those nooks and crannies. The Oral-B brush is fantastic to have that oscillating and rotating power around. There are so many wonderful
products that you could help your patient find.
Yeah, so go play with them and see what you would want to recommend. And every case is different.
Yes.
And work with your patients on
Absolutely.
that.
And I think a variation of that at home, because no one's going to really do it every day. I don't even floss every day. I use my Easy Picks. I use things like that. I'm going to brush every day. But I even go between Sonicare and my normal toothbrush, a regular toothbrush, and even then I use multiple different toothbrushes. So I think I know
you're a hygienist
I'm a nerd.
too, so
I understand.
Yeah.
I actually just was watching TV this morning, or the news, polishing with my little compact tough brush to get the wine. It's I know I've been drinking a lot of wine, because I am a hygiene nerd. But there are those patients out there too
And if they're traveling like we do, I'm not going to carry a giant, I'm not going to take my Sonicare if I'm going to be gone for 12 days because they'll probably die. So I need to have like certain things that I'm going to take.
Yep.
So you got to give them a variety of things and what's right for them.
Give them a variety and show them. I mean, if you
Yes.
have a sample,
Yes.
like you said, take a brush under there and show them what's on the end of that thing,
Yes.
and they'll say, "Oh my goodness, you're right."
Yeah. Look at
Can
there.
I also say though, for me as a hygienist, it's about building that relationship, and that's the best time to build a relationship with the patient, explaining how much you care about them, and showing them these products and giving them everything that they can have to be successful, and they're going to come back to that practice. So it's a practice builder, but there's so many on different levels. It's so effective.
Yeah.
And wonderful.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, we know you have to go film and do other things because you're the man on the exhibit floor.
I do want to
Yeah.
have you back though and talk more business.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, hey,
I
I'm
could just
I'm a
take a
big
nap
fan of your
then.
podcast, so I'd love to be back.
I'd love it.
Perfect.
This was fun being here and watching the
So-
magic happen live.
I don't know. I don't know if we're
Okay.
such a mess. You missed it when we dropped this and we're just a mess. So where can people find you, read your articles, different things like that?
I can certainly find a lot of my material on dentaleconomics.com. Everyone can have access to that. And a plug, of course, for RDH and our websites and stuff. But I do have a blog called The Curious Dentist, and I put a lot of my own lecture material on there available for free for everyone to check out.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank
Thank you
you.
very
We
much.
Thanks,
really
guys.
appreciate
Appreciate
you taking the time this early morning.
My
We didn't even
pleasure.
give you coffee. We're the worst.
Service around here stinks.
We're the worst.
Listeners, I want to tell you a story I found on the web, which makes this Scaling the Web with Andrew. So, this week on Scaling the Web with Andrew, Michelle, I think you actually sent me this one 2 months ago, maybe. And it's on Indeed.com. It's one of their forums. And it's entitled, Does Anyone Actually Like Being a Dental Hygienist? And
I sent that to you?
I think so. I feel like you said, hey, you should read this sometime. Anyways, so this is what I decided I'll do. I'll put the link in the show notes, so if anyone ever wants to read through it. The thing is, there's 122 responses. So I'm not going to read all of them, obviously. And it looks like a lot of these ones were kind of voted up, voted down, or whatever. And, okay, a lot of them are also out of Illinois. I'm not really sure if that's maybe where the original question was, or if that's just where everyone likes to be on Indeed.com. So let me read a couple of the responses, then maybe we can talk about a couple of the responses.
Wonderful.
Okay, so the first one was West Suburban Girl in Aurora, Illinois. I am an RDH living in Chicago's western suburbs and have been practicing since 2003. I enjoy my job and feel I make a difference in my patients' lives. That being said, I do not like working for my micromanaging DDS. I have been looking for another office to work in for 2 years. I scour the want ads, post my resume, and walk into offices. I turn down many offers of job interviews because there are no health benefits offered. And then health insurance in parentheses. When I speak to these dentists, they tell me they get at least 100 resumes when they advertise for jobs. The market is very tight. Full-time positions are hard to come by. I would recommend hygiene as a job if you want to work part-time and have no need of health benefits. What do you think about that? Not needing, using it as a part-time job and only if you didn't need health benefits. Do you agree with that?
Well, I feel like, if it's medical benefits that you need, then dentistry is probably not the industry for you. It sadly isn't. Now, there was once upon a time in my career when I left my one perio practice and was searching for another, and I think I was getting my BS degree. And I was like, I think I went into the wrong profession because I don't know what else to do. So I've been in that moment where I was like, I should just go back to nursing. I should be a PA. I should be something so I can grow and get, progress my career. So I think sometimes it just feels like frustration and you feel stuck.
Yeah.
And if you can just help get yourself out of that and find some kind of joy in what you're doing, like you can get past things like medical insurance. But I think if you also don't love what you do and you're not getting the things that you need to survive, then you're just going to hate your job and tell everybody how awful it is.
Which is unfortunate too. Okay, let me read another one because it's kind of along these same lines. This is from Ellen RDH in Clinton, Massachusetts. Hi KB. As an older unemployed RDH, I would strongly recommend that you don't pursue dental hygiene. The field is flooded with hygienists with and without experience. For every job posted, there are dozens of applicants. I loved my job when I had one, loved my patients, and excelled at what I do, but I was let go so the SOB I worked for could hire someone just out of school at a cheaper rate. It is nearly impossible to find a, quote, full-time job, so you are unlikely to get health insurance, vacation, or holidays. If I had to do it over again, I would have chosen nursing, PT, or some other medical field, which is what you were saying. If I sound bitter, I guess I am. I am so discouraged by the lack of responses to my resumes. The interviews I have had, I'm told they will get back to me after they interview the next 20 or so applicants. I just spent well over $1,600 to get my local anesthesia license, but so far that has not made a difference. Look long and hard at the availability of jobs in your area before you commit to dental hygiene career. Whatever you choose, best of luck to you. And then KB responded to that and said, thank you. It's nice to hear from people who have been in the field who can tell me how it really is. I guess I just have to do a little more research until I find something that will work for me and be worth my time, hard work, and money. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think if you're not, oh, Lord, my dog's going crazy. I think if you're like super frustrated and not being fulfilled and you're not in a practice where you feel like you're being used or you're struggling to find that right office, yeah, I can see where that would be incredibly discouraging and you just would not say good things about our profession. But I think if you can work past it and get into that spot, then you'll see how important we are really to the whole grand scheme of health. And I think that's the other thing is some people are just teeth cleaners.
Yeah.
So like,
no, I mean, it's almost like a calling.
People get really offended by that, but they are.
Okay, here's another one.
I got in trouble
for...
Okay, go ahead. I was going to tell you what I got in trouble, yelled at for on Facebook the other day.
You can tell me about that too in a minute. Okay. Superfluous RDH in Ottawa, Ontario. Hygiene is really, really stressful. Stress comes from the patients. Late for appointments, nervous, unwilling to cooperate, hair trigger, gag reflexes, etc. The dentist, late to do checkups, nitpicking, and any DH could add lots more to this. Front desk, not complying with requests for scheduling, lack of communication, scheduling mistakes, etc. Other office personnel with very bad attitudes, lack of teamwork, office politics, and so on. Hygiene isn't unionized, so there's very little to protect you if something bad happens in the office. The only thing you can do is quit and try and find something else. Hygiene is stressful because there are fewer and fewer jobs. I don't think that the government stats reflect the present situation. You might want to consider their source of info. Schools will tell you that all is rosy, but they need your money, period. If you get a job, your hours aren't guaranteed. There are few to no benefits. If you can't work for whatever reason, you don't get paid. It may not be a consideration now, but if you have a family later on and have a sick kid that needs to be taken to the doctor, you won't be compensated for that day. Look into nursing or anything else, really. Don't feel rushed to make a decision right now. Can you look into some career counseling at school? See if you can do interest/aptitude tests and see where your talents lie. You never know what you'll discover by yourself. Good luck. Here's kind of
I don't disagree with many of that or much of that.
And that I think that also depends on kind of your personality and what your expectations are. Because you're right. All of that stuff is true, but all of that stuff can be said about other jobs too. Nurses say the same thing.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. The grass is not always greener.
No. And I had a patient one time tell me something about the grass is not always greener and sometimes it's AstroTurf. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. So, it's just that's fake and really stupid. And, he's pretty good.
It's just a facade and it's not the reality of actually working there. It's true.
So,
it's true.
I don't know. I just feel like I think, yes, I'm in a freaking sweet situation with my job, and I get that. And I'm very grateful for that. But generally, you have to understand that you're going to make more than twice as much as most people do. Even if your hours get cut, while I know you'd want to be making a certain amount, you're still making more than most people do. And so if your expectations are you're going to get 32 to 40 hours because that was what was promised, I say lower your expectations a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, quite frankly, I would lose my mind if I was just sitting behind a desk and
Yeah.
taking up space just to get till 5 o'clock. I'd rather be busy. I'd rather be doing things. I'd rather be doing something for a person. And though there are those PIA patients that, geez, you see their name on the schedule and you immediately want to pop a Xanax.
Yeah.
There are the really great ones and the connections that you made. My patients paid for both the 2 mission trips that I went on while at my office. They paid for half of each one.
That's amazing. That's
Like,
great.
I had amazing patients, which is the reason I stayed for 7 years. Like, they were just awesome. So you can come across and I didn't have a great work environment. Like, I went to work just like having like a pep talk in my head. Like, you can get through this day. Don't let them get to you. Don't let her berate you and get you down. And then I'd see my patients and it would be fine. And, it's great.
Yeah.
So you got to find the joy somewhere in it all.
What'd you get in trouble for?
So I got in trouble. Yeah, I got in trouble for saying that you could teach a monkey to scale teeth.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Okay, hold on. What did you mean by that, really? And then why did you get in trouble?
Someone was talking. I actually don't remember what the post was, but she was very offended because we put so much time and work into our skills. And I was like, I literally could teach a monkey to scale. Like, you can make the actions. You can, over time, create tactile sensitivity and pop calculus off. It's a matter of connecting the dots, and that's what makes a good hygienist. Taking what you see, what you're reading in their health history, all these things, but going through the motion, like wrist motion, feeling, cavitron, suction. I can teach the most basic human being to do these things. That's not what our skill is. The point of our profession and where I think we are underutilized is how we connect the dots and how we can educate and look at all the different other modalities to care for that patient, because at the end of the day, and I say it all the time, does not freaking matter what I do in that chair for that patient. If I don't teach them, I don't assess them properly, I don't find a way to make them successful after they leave my chair, it means nothing. Unless you have that patient that will not see me for another 10 years and has not one speck of calculus, never flosses, never brushes, and they're fine. But those are the exception to the rule. The reality is most people need something outside of the actual scaling process. I mean, and I say that, I hope you know what I'm saying when I mean, like, when I say that. Like, I know people need scaling. You have to remove calculus. But the reality is a hygienist is more than that. And I could teach a trained monkey to scale teeth.
So,
in some situations I have. I'm just kidding.
I got in a little bit of a disagreement with one of our dear friends. And maybe I won't say who it is, just I don't want to embarrass her or whatever, just because I don't want her to think I'm talking about her. But it was along the same thing, because I was going into that New Mexico, the Albuquerque lecture, and it was on restorative dentistry or restorative hygiene. And so I was trying to explain to her, I have these instruments that I use, and it's not really all that hard to teach someone mechanically how to place a filling. Like, that part's the simple part. It's the science behind it that is hard to understand with the bonding agents. And, when you're drying out a tooth, how dry is too dry before you start to collapse all the tubules, and that bonding won't work anymore, and, all these other things. And I likened it, and she's a hygienist too, and I likened it to, hey, it's not how long would it take you to honestly teach someone how to scale teeth? Like, it wouldn't take that long to show them how to scrape a tooth and what surfaces to scrape and what instruments to use for that. It wouldn't take that long. And she was like, no, it would take me like a couple of years. And I'm like, but you have students that, aren't in it full time and aren't scraping teeth all day long. They're only in it for a clinic for however many hours a week, and we end up teaching them just fine after 2 years. So I feel like if I sat with somebody hands on and watched every single thing that they did day after day after day, it would take me maybe a month to get them trained to be able to do the job. Now there's other parts that, they couldn't do, but I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay, good. So we're on the same page. But
we're in the minority.
She did not like it. I was.
No.
Yeah, for sure.
People hate
She
that.
did not like it. I think I said this last week where I was like highly active on Facebook and I needed to tame it down.
Yeah, you did.
Carrie even was like, you were in rare form the other week. I was like, I just couldn't take what the last straw for me was when somebody asked, so give me the protocol for hepatitis C and doing instruments these days. I was like, if I could reach across like into this computer and just smack you.
I'm glad you can't.
And what was, but what I do enjoy is when I've commented on something, getting the screenshot and a Facebook message that says, holy God, these people are practicing with us. And I'm like, yes, I know.
Yes.
And then when I type a response and send it back to them, like, do I press send? And they talk me off the ledge. I appreciate you, friends. You know who you are that do this for me.
Every day. You're welcome.
Not just you. Yeah. You do that for me
one.
A lot. But
No, I don't.
There's some other ones out there that actually just recently did that for me. I was like, do I hit send? Tell me I shouldn't do it because I really want to be really mean right now.
I like to rile you up and then unleash you upon Facebook. That's what I like to do.
And that's why you get all the Facebook love and I get not approached by anybody.
That's right. Anyways, that's all I have for scaling the web.
All right. Well, that was a good one. Lots of discussion there. If anybody has anything to add to that, always remember you can send us Facebook messages or post under the link that we share for the podcast. We want to hear your thoughts.
You know, it'd be even better. Honestly, I'm not even kidding. Mm-hmm. Just audio record yourself saying something and send it to us so we can embed it into this file. And it's like an MP3 or .wav or what is it?
You can do it on your phone.
Yeah, there's a lot of different audio files that I can convert on here very simply. And all you have to do is like upload to Dropbox or send it to me. And then we'll just put it on the air. It'd be fun. Yeah. So
we liked interaction, so that'd be great. All right. Good job scaling the web.
It's about that time. Grab your blanket and a glass of wine. It's story time with Michelle.
Story Time with Michelle is brought to you by Wine Awesomeness. Wine Awesomeness provides a unique way to explore and enjoy wine through customizable subscription options with an emphasis on wine discovery. Each delicious monthly shipment is an editorialized adventure through a theme, trend, educational concept, or a part of the wine world. Whether it's a deep dive into overlooked Eastern European wines, a selection of bottles perfect for your backyard barbecues, or a month devoted to showcasing the work of women winemakers, they've got you. Don't forget to use the coupon code TALE, that's TALE, to receive 10% off your order, or just go to our Facebook page and click the sign up button.
This week, Storytime with Michelle, I am drinking a 2015 dry rosé from Schaefer, which comes from Germany. So if you heard the beginning of this podcast, I was correct that it was a German wine. Its description, says it's rarely seen solo mode. This grape, which has it provides a zesty dry rosé which clocks in at a magical meager and very bright. But I think this thing actually was Google Translate. Doesn't make sense. Let me see if I can just... Okay, it says something about intensely drinkable and highly refreshing. This fiercely flavorful yet light-bodied masterpiece from the Rheinheisen's somewhat red-centric Volker Schaefer packs bold, berryish fruit, striking an exceptional characterful balance. I don't know what that German word is.
They
to
think
end it.
very
So
highly
I
of
will just
themselves,
leave it
is
there.
what
So
it
it's
sounds
called,
like.
yeah, for sure. What's funny is that its serving suggestions are sausage salad with gherkins, onion slices, vinaigrette, and mustard, or a General Tso's chicken. Yeah, it's not authentic, but it's comfort food with broccoli and lo mein.
That's so good. I love it.
But it's spelled Schaefer, Schafer. And I'm kind of a rosé snob. I don't like the super sweet ones. And usually if they're as pink as they are, and you saw that it was like super rosé, I don't like them.
Sure.
This one's a pretty good one. So give it a try. Schaefer Dry Rosé 2015. And for Storytime with Michelle, I thought I would do an article that I hear a lot of questions, or a question I hear often when I present for implant maintenance, which is probing with a metal versus plastic probe.
Yay, thank you. I'm glad you're doing this one.
Do you have a preference, or do you use one more over the other because of a reason?
I don't use one more than the other for a reason, except for I just happen to have that, the one that comes in that PDT cassette. So I use that one.
Which is a great one because it's very flexible, which is something that is very important when we're probing implants. So let's talk about this. So this comes from Implant Dentistry 2012. Volume 21 is titled Probing and Scaling Instrumentation on Implant Abutment Surfaces and In Vitro Study. So probing the sulcular depth around an endosteal dental implant is an important clinical index in the assessment of implant health and assessment. Several implant workshops and physician articles recommend probing to monitor implants. Recording probing depth helps with monitoring the integrity of the peri-implant gingival tissues. In addition to the physical measurement of the probing depth, probing allows the clinician to assess gingival tissue consistency, gingival bleeding, and the presence of exudate. Even though healthy, stable implants may have a deep gingival pocket, pockets greater than 5 mm tend to harbor high levels of anaerobic bacteria and may need intervention in the presence of tissue inflammation or exudate. It is recommended that baseline probing depth be recorded after the initial gingival tissue healing around the perimucosal aspect of the implant. During implant maintenance, follow-up probing measurements showing an increase in the baseline probing depth usually indicates the loss of alveolar bone support. Increasing probing depth.
Stop. Okay. So what if, though, and they might be explaining this later on, but what if so they have that done in a perio office, then what they're suggesting is that we measure it after everything's healed in our office, or that the periodontist is doing it at one of their follow-ups?
So if you are the restoring practice, it would be the best to probe that implant once the crown or restoration is placed.
Okay,
So
because by then everything is healed enough.
Yes.
Is what we're understanding. Okay.
Because you really shouldn't probe within 6 months of placement of that implant. There's a lot of healing that needs to take place. So once the crown or restoration has been placed on that implant, then you should get a baseline. Keeping in mind, and granted, this is not a part of this thing, but it's a part of my teaching for implants, that you might only probe the facials. It depends on what kind of prosthetic that is on there, because you might not be able to access that very well. So you might monitor radiographically the mesial and distal sides of that implant and then probe facial lingual. Or you might only get 2 spots of probing depths on the facial and 3 on the lingual. Who knows? But sometimes there's going to be difficulty, and so you should set that baseline. And for me, just kind of put a note somewhere. Difficulty probing on mesial aspect because of the contour of the crown. Monitor radiographically, starting probing depths at mesial facial line angle or something, something like that. I don't know.
Okay. I have a follow-up question to that then also.
Okay.
What if you have a 6 mm pocket, 7 mm pocket, after the restoration? Like that's your baseline now is a 7 millimeter pocket.
I honestly, I haven't really seen that. I would think a 4 to 5 millimeter pocket is a little bit more of your typical. I don't even want to say typical. You would see that more often than a 6 to 7 millimeter pocket. A 6 to 7 millimeter pocket, that there might have been a. You just don't see that much of an abutment placement, even if the crown was or if the implant was placed at bone height, meaning you don't have that additional type part of the implant that comes out from the bone, and then you add the abutment to it, you might get a 4 to 5 millimeter pocket there. I don't see too often 6 to 7 millimeters in a healthy implant, even when the crown has been placed. So I think you're pretty safe to say about the 4 to 5 millimeters, but if that's what it was at baseline, then I would say make sure you document it, but then radiographically, because you have to remember probing is just a portion of the big picture.
Right.
It's not the number. We're looking at also the qualitative data. So bleeding, exudate, tissue consistency around that implant.
So if there was
sense?
a 5 millimeter pocket though at that initial one, and that can still be considered normal or acceptable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue on with the study then.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, increasing probing depth in the presence of the other signs and symptoms such as gingival bleeding, gingival exudate, pain, and or implant mobility is important in diagnosing peri-implant diseases and may be a relevant factor in managing a compromised implant. Dental implants are usually placed in the jawbones with implant fixtures, coronal surface at the alveolar crest. Sorry, I had to swallow. The implant abutment interfaces with the implant fixture's coronal surface. The apical portion of the implant abutment, an exposed collar of the metal, is usually a coronal to alveolar crest. The oral mucosal tissue surrounding the collar of the metal and create a soft tissue mechanical cuff around the implant abutment interface. The function of the peri-implant mechanical cuff is to maintain a barrier to the outside contaminants. It does so by shielding the implant abutment interface and the alveolar bone encompassing the implant. So let me just kind of go down. So they're really looking at the abutments because that's the other thing. And this is not in the. I'm pretty much giving my CE for free here, but
yeah. Well,
essentially, what you have to understand is what are you probing. So we're not talking about scaling at this point. We're talking about probing. And if we look past the fact that probing doesn't actually scratch surfaces, it just doesn't. And if you're just meeting where the porcelain or Emax or whatever kind of type of restoration you placed meets kind of that abutment, but then you have a nice healthy collar around that implant, you're really not going that far. Like you're not doing much. But if you have the implant abutment that you're starting to see, if you have the exposed threads and the roughened implant surface, these are all very different stories, I think, for probing and scaling. But for probing, let's just kind of go back to now the study. So this study evaluated in vitro, which means out of the mouth, the effect of probing and scaling instruments on implant abutment surfaces. The study also compared the implant abutment surface changes induced by probes and scalers made of different materials. I'm kind of focusing more on probing on this one, though. The study showed that the metal probes had no relevant damaging effect on the abutment surfaces. So both probes and plastic scalers equally induced roughness on the abutment surfaces. Metal scalers, I'm going to pass that because I feel like that's it. I got another better article for that. Let's see, let me go back to probing. The approximate numerical and near statistical significance of the values of the metal probe treated surface to the untreated surface may be evidence of the limited action of the blunt and rounded end surface of the metal periodontal probe on the abutment surfaces. Comparison of the similarity of the magnitudes of the standard deviation between these two groups lends further support to their statistical equivalence. It may be possible that the rounded point of the metal probe burnishes the machining grooves on the abutment, thus slightly reducing the surface roughness on the implant abutment surface. The surprising action of the plastic scaler and the plastic probe by increasing the surface roughness of the abutment significantly above the untreated surface means roughness values is explained by the light microscopy of the surfaces. It seems that plastic instruments deposit a significant amount of attachment. And we'll talk again. I have a better article for that. So pretty much what it's saying is that you really can use metal and plastic probes. However, from a clinical aspect, so that's from the scientific research side of it. From the clinical side of it, I would prefer a plastic probe like the one that you have from PDT because it has flexibility, and I could get around those bulkier, contoured, especially if it's one that's contoured severely on the mesial, but not so much on the distal or whatever you might have it. Those are going to be, just from a clinical aspect, better. But you can possibly use a metal probe. But I will also say, it's not in this article, but you have to be very gentle probing around implants. It is 0.25 newtons or 2 grams. Do you know how much pressure that is?
The weight of 2 paper clips.
Sure. I have no. You can make any guess because nobody knows. No, like there's not. I mean, we probably could all be taught what that feels like. So I just teach people to use it like you're exploring. A very light grip. You're just feeling. It's again. You are trying to get a number to compare to your baseline, but reality is that that number is just a small picture. You're looking for exudate, bleeding, tissue consistency, all those things. So there is your story time with Michelle for the week. And I would like to also say that last week's was pretty much like drunk history with Michelle. Sorry, guys.
I enjoyed it. And there are lots of times where I'm like, oh, should I correct her on that word? I'm like, nah, she's not going to remember it anyways. It's fine.
No,
but
that wine was strong. I did. The wine was strong.
Oh. See, that'll teach you
But I do feel like
podcast, though.
Well, I kind of have to because I got to post about it. And sometimes I forget. And I got to edit it. You know, all that stuff.
Yes.
But I do think that that would be a fun spin on it, which was a suggestion at AO from my new friend Lori from Zimmer Implants. She was like, you should do drunk history because that's the best. I was like, maybe I should do drunk story time with Michelle. Let's see how many words I can... and how many words can I slur and then make up my own ending to the story?
Yes.
Did you ever watch Drunk History?
I watched the one about with Hamilton. That's the only one I watched.
It's pretty great. It's hilarious. There's one in Charleston. You should find that one.
Okay. Sounds good.
Good one. All right. I'm pouring myself another glass of wine, even though we're done with the podcast. But
yeah, well, let's be done. Thanks, listeners. Thanks. Twice.
Yeah, another week. Cheers to Michelle going to work on her presentation. Yay. Bye y'all.
Oh, Michelle. Why do people listen to us?